Thank you very much. Welcome back, everyone. Hope you had a good break there. So next we're going to move on to a very cool session, which is the showcase of thematic solutions by women changemakers. And here's where we're going to be hearing about really on-the-ground practical solutions to all of the issues we've been discussing today. So today's session will focus on solutions by women changemakers and highlight the leading role of women as innovators and entrepreneurs to create a sustainable and inclusive energy transition. So this session will showcase solutions implemented in each of the Forum 5 themes by leading women changemakers, and the session will emphasize the critical role that women play in developing and deploying innovative, clean energy solutions. There is a growing recognition of the role of women within the energy workforce, from representation in leadership and boards to technical training and mentoring. And there's also strong evidence linking gender-diverse boardrooms with better company performance and the promotion of innovation and development. Women-led businesses have been found to be more efficient often and achieve higher growth and profits. So in light of this, the dialogue on gender and energy is shifting, with women being identified as part of vulnerable groups to acknowledging the power that they hold as key agents of change. And we know that historically energy has felt like a very male-dominated field, but this shift is really perceptible. Certainly for me, who's been an energy journalist working in this field for 15 years, I'm happy to say that I see much more gender balance these days than I used to, although we are far away from, I think, where we would want to be. So let me introduce you now to our change makers that we have here with us. We have Camille André Bataille, who is CEO and co-founder of ANCA. We have Nora Magero, co-founder and CEO of Drop Access. We have Sandiswa Kai, managing director of AET. And we have Azeda Farjapour Javazmi, who is founder of Better Soil for a Better World. Welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to hear presentations from each of them about what their solutions are, and then you guys will have a chance to ask your questions, if you'd like, to the changemakers we have here. So Camille, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about ANCA.
So thank you first for having me here. I'm very happy to be here with my fellow leaders, female leaders. I actually don't like to say female leaders, just leaders. I don't know why we don't say male leaders, but anyway, that's maybe for another part of the discussion. So ANCA is a company that was first established in Madagascar. That's where I live for the last 10 years. And ANCA is focusing on developing and implementing energy access infrastructures, such as mini-grids for rural communities and isolated populations. But we also work for the CNI space, so the commercial and industrial clients and utility scale projects. And one of our last job is actually to provide advisory and consultancy for different kind of stakeholders in the space. So that's basically how it all started. We are now in Madagascar, and we have a footprint in different other African countries. And this whole story started with basically me leaving my home place in France, as you may have noticed with my accent. I'm sorry about that. I'm actually only half French. Nobody's perfect. And so, yeah, my mother used to work in the energy sector as well, and she used to tell me that this is going to be very difficult for you, my daughter, like working in this industry, the energy sector. And I found at that time that I was quite depressing and cynical. And so I decided that I was up to the challenge and that I would start my own stuff and do something about it. So that's how I left. I was about 24 and went to Madagascar. Started a company. There were only two of us, two female, two women. The other one is still with me today after almost 8 years. And we're starting this whole adventure based on the idea of providing solutions towards achieving the SDG 7, but also for the inclusion of women within that field, because the energy field is largely, massively male-dominated, and it's been the case for years. And what we observe is that, like today, and what I've been observing for years, is the issue regarding gender equality and women inclusion is at different levels. One thing that I observe is in the workforce. Like we are all asked to, companies like mine, we are asked to include more women in our workforce, in our teams, but it's actually very complicated. We are asked to bring in women when women actually do not exist, for employment largely. So even though my company today has 65% of female at the executive board and more than 40% in the management side, overall within the company, it's less than 30%. Why? Because all of the engineer and technical positions are very difficult to fill in with women. And this is not a question of what are your hirement criteria or whatever, it's just, is there women following educational background in that field? And the answer is most of the time no, because there's no educational framework to incentivize or to support women to get access to those to this education, and they're most of the time very afraid of getting in. So one solution that we found, or it's not a solution, it's more of a mindset of being involved in your own space and your own industry, is to get closer to young girls and young women from high school and universities, having this same kind of conversation and pitch to explain to them what are the job positions, the opportunities, why it would be interesting, and so on. So bringing the conversation to the very starting point of having people involved in the industry that starts in high school and universities. My company is also part of mentoring programs, so we support all kinds of entrepreneurs, but also including women entrepreneurs. And we see over the time, there's a program in Madagascar that we're working with that has been set up by an investment fund called IVECF and supported by USAID. And over the last couple of years, the ratio of women entrepreneurs in the cohort has increased up to 70%. So there is more and more involvement, and we need to be there to support them. Obviously, the second thing that I do observe in our field is the lack of leaderships as well, like female who want to get involved in this industry. I think that it's very hard to say why. Maybe they don't get being in the right circumstances and environments to start our own company and do things is sometimes complicated for any people, male or female. But I think that we can get scared about this industry. I mean, let's face it. It's sometimes difficult to be in a crowd surrounded by male and having to prove ourselves that we know that we're talking about, that we are experienced, that we are skilled, that we can deliver the job. So maybe that can be a little bit scary. And I think that by having this kind of events, but maybe bringing it in a more plenary session context would be helpful. I think that we need to bring everyone around the table about this discussion. So we're trying to gather with our other female leaders in networks and to brainstorm around how to connect all together. There's a lot of networks already internationally that federate women in the energy industry, but it's almost too many of them. So how can we gather and be more powerful? We've started an hashtag on the social media, Energy Queens, to try to get more women to follow up on this hashtag and to connect all together. So those are just small initiatives, but we're trying to gather people. And the other thing that I want to mention, and that's maybe the third observation that I've had over the years doing this job, is the women as beneficiaries. So the women that we actually try to impact through our solutions and our work. That's kind of a fun fact, but also a sad fact. My company has run on its own initiative a pilot on electric cooking for the past 2 years. And one thing that we've noticed is that out of the sample of households and restaurants that we worked with during this pilot project, 100% of them, those households and restaurants were led by women. But 100% of those households and restaurants, their meters were actually under the name of their husbands. And that is just super striking and kindly sad. because you see that women are very much involved in the daily life. They bring money to the household. They are really involved at work, at housework. They take care of the children. They take care of many things. But they're not being recognized for what they are and what role they play. So we, again, try to work with them, federate women's associations and cooperatives to talk about those issues and to try to bring them to be more included within the solutions, especially on some kind of project that we have around agriculture, agri-processing, cooking, obviously, and all kind of energy applications or productive use that we target through our mini-grid solution and energy access solution.
Thanks so much, Camille. Let's check with the audience. Does anyone in the audience have a question for Camille about ENCA? If not, I have a question. So you mentioned at the beginning feeling kind of intimidated or scared, right, by people telling you, oh, the energy sector is not something, it's not easy for women, and then maybe not being able to see like role models there in the space. What would be your advice to young women entering the space who are feeling the same way, who are feeling maybe a sense of intimidation or a sense of, I don't see anyone like me there in the boardroom, so maybe I should do something else?
Well, I guess that the first thing is to leave loneliness and to get closer to people that may feel the same way or that are trying to penetrate our industry. I think that there are enough women today. That was maybe not the case when I started, maybe when those girls started, but now there are enough women capable of owning their story, sharing their experience and their feedback, and trying to gather and federate. I think that we are one perfect example of this, and this is one event. But all year long, there are opportunities for women to gather, to brainstorm, to get together, and I think that this will always be, and has always been, a good way to start, to talk to other people, to other women, to other entrepreneurs, be part of some groups, and get connected, to get access to information and try to leave this space of fear and intimidation. We're not going to change everyone's mindset over the day, over the night, or even over a year, maybe even over a decade. I mean, we've been talking and we've had this discussion prior to having this session, actually. Like we've been having this conversation about gender equality and female inclusion for quite a long time now, and we're still having the same conversation today. Only a little has changed over time, and the one thing that I kind of regret, if I may, is that having this kind of conversation not in a plenary session, not having everyone join in the conversation is kind of a bummer. And I feel like this needs to change if we really want to come up to concrete results.
Well, let's turn to Nora next with a different type of innovation. So Nora, tell us a little bit about drop access and the specific innovation, the VaxiBox.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. And thank you all for today. So my name is Nora Magero. I am from Kenya. I am an engineer by profession, but also I'm a renewable energy expert, and mostly I'm just an innovator. And Drop Access is a limited company that is Kenyan-based, and we pride ourselves in providing practical and affordable clean energy solutions. And specifically, we manufacture solar refrigerators that fall within the intersection, or rather the nexus of energy, or rather climate and healthcare, as well as energy and agriculture and so forth. So before I even explain so much of what Drop Access does, is personally, as a woman who comes from the African continent, I've experienced inequality and inaccessibility of energy in various forms. As a mother, I've experienced inaccessibility of cold chain for medical products for my children because I was living in a rural community, and that pretty much just inspired the foundational basics of forming Drop Access. But then even keeping that in mind, I used to work a bit in the petroleum industry, then I shift quickly to work in the renewable energy industry. And I was working in projects that were building energy systems for the agricultural space, mostly flower farms in Kenya. And all the time I'll read the statistic, oh, the 600 million Africans who don't have electricity, Africa is still in the dark and so forth. And it bothered me why most of the financing was really just going to the bigger projects. And it made sense. That's where the money actually was promising to come from. So I intentionally left that sector and went to the private sector, mostly targeting productive use technologies within the energy sector that were guided by the African continent, the people who actually needed them. Because also I saw that most of the solutions that are coming into the continent, we were trying to fit into them instead of really them fitting into our needs. And as an engineer, obviously, I started questioning, like, what's the validity of a green energy transition when truly solutions don't match up to what we needed to do? That's also formed the basis of founding Drop Access. And I went intentionally into manufacturing this technology within the continent because I felt like if so much money is going to be put into clean tech globally, Africa should have a very fair share of it. It should have a fair share of manufacturing. It should have a fair share of bringing these technologies to maturity, to benefit from the subsidies, benefit from carbon financing, because the technologies that are brought in, it's the other companies that are based in the West or abroad that actually eventually benefit from the dollar in the long run. So that's why I manufacture within the African continent to serve the whole of African ecosystem. So we make two main products. There's one that serves the healthcare space called the VaxiBox that has been such a notable product that has been also recognized globally. So VaxiBox is a portable refrigerator that is solar powered, and it's used specifically to serve the healthcare space. The healthcare is very fundamental, obviously, and COVID just showed us clearly, like, if we can't survive health or health issues, then everything that we do doesn't make sense at all. So VaxiBox really got a lot of traction during the COVID period because we started with storage vaccines just to ensure that we're able to keep them in the right temperature between +2 and +8 degrees. And there's so many of the vaccines need cold storage. And if you talk of a continent where there's so many hotspots for where there's just no electricity, then it means there's no cold storage. And if it's there, it's intermittent. So VaxiBox was developed and manufactured to bridge the cold storage gaps for hospitals that are based in these rural communities or off-grid communities or just communities that face intermittent power or cannot even afford to have the available cold storage technology. It's locally made in Kenya. I'm one of the engineers who've taken active participation in developing VaxiBox, and we've been able to test it for use within the vaccination space, both for human and animal health. So there is a very big interlinkage between animal health and human health, because most of the 60% of human diseases actually originate from the animal health. That's why even the technology that are bringing to the market must actually still cover the One Health mandate for us. So the clean tech should be able to obviously take care of the human beings, but also take care of the animals. So that's why we've been able to pilot VaxiBox in the usage with the animal vaccines. Currently, we have an anti-rabies campaign that is going on. Rabies is such a big issue in Kenya because also the animal sector, mostly like the dogs, is not that well controlled. We have the African dog that is pretty much not really a controlled animal. So there's so many cases of rabies that is affecting children, that is affecting rural communities. And VaxiBox has really taken a center stage in just ensuring that as much as we're keeping the anti-rabies call, but then also we're able to expand the distribution to ensure we're able to grow the geographical reach. That's why it's been built to a portable product that you can mount on the most available form of mobility. And in our case, we use the bicycles, the motorbikes, to be able to store the vaccines and also keep them cold while in motion, but then also just get them to where the most needed and where the biggest need, and that is in the rural community that just don't have electricity. But then also we develop and manufacture cold storage solution within the agriculture space. So we have a refrigerator called Koyo that has been built with pretty much the smallholder farmer in mind. What are their needs? What are the crops? Where do they need to move it from point A to point B? And we intentionally brought the portability aspect in it because if you look at like a typical rural dairy farmer, if they can't get their milk to the cooperative, then they're probably going to try to get it to where the neighbor is or to the market. So we still just want to ensure that they get to aggregate as much, produce as much as possible, but then also they have the opportunity to fight for better prices and be truly productive, but ensuring that they get it to the last mile where they can fetch a better price. But then also, if they don't want to sell it to the market, they can aggregate it for value addition. I always believed that the clean energy technologies that we're getting should do more than lighting. And I think earlier on we had Damilola explaining so much about that, mostly just a focus on the African ecosystem. It should give more than lighting, because I have seen families that have gotten a fancy light, but they're still starving under this light. So the clean energy transition should also incorporate economic growth for these communities, for the household, for the farmers, for the families that are also adopting them, and should actually benefit them for a meaningful shelf life or a period till maybe there's end of life for these technologies. But I'm really, really big on ensuring that we grow the economies for this household, because I truly believe also that is just one way we can sort out the poverty issue within the African ecosystem. Yeah.
Thanks, Nora. It's really interesting the tailored solutions that are there for some of the particular issues. Do we have any questions from the audience for Nora? Just a second. So I have a question. So can you explain how these specific solutions help enhance gender equality and gender diversity? You mentioned a bit that, well, healthcare certainly, but some of these issues are the types of issues that can cause systemic inequality. Why is that, and how does this help reverse or be the antidote to that?
Okay, thank you for that. So it's a fact. With energy poverty, the woman is the most affected. We're the biggest interactors with energy. We're the biggest interactors in the household and in so many environments. So if you look at the VaxiBox refrigerator, it's been built to work within the energy and healthcare nexus. And for example, we're tackling vaccine inequality. And without vaccines, the people who take some of the biggest hits are the children. They get the vaccine-preventable diseases. So you find a child maybe crippled from polio and so forth. Sadly enough, it is the woman who will be responsible for unpaid care work, taking care of this sick child for the years to come. That means productivity is out of the window. They do not even have time for self-development. And I've been in that space as a mother where if my child is sick, I have to stay at home, irrespective of whether I run a startup or not. So VaxiBox is trying just to ensure there's better health outcomes for communities, so that the woman is not bogged down with taking care of sick children or sick family members, but also just to ensure that we reduce the out-of-pocket expenditure also for these women. I have lived in rural communities in Kenya, and I've experienced how if your child gets sick, right now, let's say they had a fever and maybe they start to convulse and you have to take them to the hospital, it is the mother who will have to dig into her pocket and ensure that, oh, I pay for the motorbike or I pay for the transport, and when I get to the hospital, I have to pay a small fee registration. That takes the economic capability of the woman. It chips into the economic enhancement. So when these technologies are available to ensure that better health outcomes, the woman definitely benefits. The children benefit. They're able to ensure we can allocate even this extra money that will have been used for out-of-pocket expenditure to take care of a sick child, to even pay school fees for a girl who will not have been considered to go to school because there's like a long list of men who still need to go to school. So it directly just impacting how women can actually settle into an equitable society. Then also we have the solution, the core solution that we're providing that plays in the energy and agriculture nexus that just ensures that the smallholder farming population that is mostly run and managed by women do benefit. They need to increase their productivity as farmers, as also caretakers of the household. At the end of the day, if a woman spent, 3 months trying to grow a crop, we should ensure that each and every single dollar that they can get from that farming actually gets into her pocket. If it's a perishable product, COYO comes into place to ensure that they don't really sell off their tomatoes or their fish quickly because they're so scared, like, oh my God, it's going to spoil within the next 24 hours. They can actually just hold on to it and say, you know what, I'm going to sell to the highest bidder. And to me, that's how I look at productivity. But then also further productivity into value addition. This smallholder farming community that are mostly managed by women, it makes work easier for them when we introduce cold chain to ensure they're able to aggregate, they're able to practice value addition and create cottage businesses where they can actually earn an extra dollar, an extra income for them to ensure that they're able to keep the food going on the table for them. But even as simple as once this food that you took your time to go fetch it or harvest it or make it, days leftover food, it should be thrown away. It should be reserved. It should be kept for the next time so that you're not spending so much of your years cooking in the kitchen because the family's got to eat. If you can save that food, don't cook next tomorrow by keeping it in the refrigerator, that's well and good. Like to me, I look at that's truly just impacting women through technologies and directly impacting women through technologies.
Thanks. Let's hear next from Sandizwa from AET, who's running a clean tech company based in South Africa that saves a lot of energy when heating water. Tell us a bit more about that.
Thank you very much. My name is Sandizwa Kai. I'm the co-founder and managing director of AET Africa. I'm a development practitioner by background. At AET Africa, we focus on innovation and manufacturing of energy efficiency products. We're focusing more on retrofit solution for water heating and cooling efficiencies. The reason why I focused specifically on water heating is because when I started the company in 2014, South Africa was experiencing high cost of electricity, and the water heaters are understood to be the biggest consumers of electricity. And as a mother, I was staying with my daughter and having to switch on my water heater because I have to save every rand that I can spare from electricity. And yes, there were alternative solutions in the market, but the capital investment that was required to switch to alternatives. And so my focus then was to zoom into the existing water heaters into the market because as women who are, especially in South Africa, households are led by females, and females are breadwinners. So I asked myself, if I'm experiencing this pain as a middle income earner, how many more women who are experiencing this problem? Because although you can switch your water heater on and off, but the inconvenience where you have to wait for that water to be heated, and if now you come home late and you have to bath your child, then that's when then I invested my time and energy with my partners to look into that specifically, because I felt like water heating shouldn't be a luxury, but should be a basic human need, or everyone should have access, because when you talk energy efficiency, when you talk renewable energies, at that stage, it felt like it's talking or it's excluding the majority of people. Of course, we had to look into solution that talks to what's already existing into the market. So that's what we dedicated our time from 2014 and commercialized the product in 2018. But the journey to get the product commercialized or even access to the market has been a very difficult one, because the water heating space has been currently, it's male-dominated space. All the owners in terms of like your water heating manufacturers, most of them in fact are not even South African owned. So to penetrate that market in terms of bringing this retrofit, now you are faced with the challenge of having to go and beg or sell the concept to them to endorse so that you can roll it out, or you go to the consumer or the end user to be the ones who make the decisions. But again, the challenge that we've experienced in that case is that although our end users want the product, but the policies and legislation when it comes to certification and retrofit of these devices became a challenge. Again, so while we're trying to solve the problem regarding the access to energy, I then looked in terms of what else can we do as a company to make sure that women benefit within the energy saving space. So what we've done as a company in terms of our commitment is to make sure that we also bring in more women into the energy space through mentorship, through internship programs, as well as offering skills program. Because we found out that the majority of university students who are graduating as electricians or who are within the engineering space, most of them, especially the African ladies, struggle to get into the engineering space. So what we've done as a company is to look into the space where we give them exposure within the manufacturing space as well as the value chain, and enable them to be active participants within the energy sector, because One of the aspects of our product is that for the retrofit, you need to work with plumbers, you need to work with electricians. So what we've done is to equip them in terms of being active participants. Some of them, they might not be innovators, they might not own the manufacturing plants, but we wanted to make sure that through our work, then they get the exposure and then get to be active participants within the energy space. So we are in the process now of really rolling out that program to make sure that we can also encourage grassroots innovators and also encourage entrepreneurs within the value chain of energy efficiency so that we bring more women into the energy space, because at the end of the day, we are the ones who are also affected, because if now, for example, within the water heating space, you've got water heaters of about 6.2 million, and those households, about 2 million of them are owned by females, and if we can't access or have access to that affordable hot water, then it means the majority is still marginalized. So that's the work that we are doing as AET Africa.
Thanks. It struck me, your story, when you said, I'm experiencing this issue, how many other women are also experiencing this issue? That's where a lot of innovation comes from, isn't it? That people are experiencing a problem and they say, I bet a lot of other people are experiencing this problem. How can I fix it? Let's check with the audience. Does anyone have a question for Sandizwa? No, okay, so I have a question. We know that a big theme with innovation is that collaboration and partnerships are really important to advancing solutions, which include also the clean energy space, that those types of collaborations between sectors, within sectors, are really important. What are some of the successful collaborations AET has engaged in to drive the mission of creating opportunities for women in the energy industry?
Okay, thank you. The first collaboration we had for us, especially to advance in terms of the skills development aspect, was to collaborate with an NPO that's called SASKI in South Africa, that's focusing on equipping young women in engineering and science. And those are the first partners that assisted us in terms of having access to the pool of university students and graduates who are looking for the experience into the energy space. So we worked with them in terms of having access to this pool and getting them to pay for these students to be placed in our company. And one interesting aspect or developmental spin-off out of that is some of those university students were even struggling to have money to register to complete their degrees, but through the partnership, they could get a stipend and be able to pay for their student fees. And we worked with several players within the energy or innovation space because one of the things that we've also experienced is that the cost of R&D as well as piloting the product into the market were significant. So we wouldn't have made it without our strategic partners. And again, through the Global Clean Tech Innovation Program, we've managed now to also reach out to the manufacturers, the water heater manufacturers, because we've realized that whichever way we're going in terms of selling the product, we still need their buy-in, because if we're to change now the standards and the warranties, we need to have them on board. But to go there alone as one company doesn't create the kind of impact we need. So now I have to lean on to other entrepreneurs and other institutions that are already in the space that can assist us in terms of getting a listening ear from the key industry players, because as I said, the barriers to market entry were quite high and strict. So those are the kind of strategic relationships and partnerships that have assisted us to survive for this long in the space.
Thanks. Well, let's turn to Azada next to hear more about Better Soil for a Better World. Tell us about your innovative solution.
Well, at Better Soil, we promised our parents to do it better. How do we do it in different ways? Let me give you some examples. First of all, we decided to have 50-50 women, men on board as members. So we started with ourselves. So when you go on our website and check our team, you see almost 50-50. We decided to have different nationalities on board. So we started with 4. We have 4 nations. from Malawi, from Kenya, from Iran. Where I come from, I'm from Germany. And we started to pick up a topic which has been ignored and neglected over decades. We chose the topic of soil health, improving soil health for climate protection, climate adaptation, and sustainable food production. Why did we choose soil? Because soil is the second largest carbon reservoir on Earth after the ocean. Soil has the strong connection to our health because we are what we eat, and 95% of our food comes from soil. When the soil is poor, we are going to be poor. And soil has a strong connection to biodiversity above ground. More than half of global biodiversity lives under our feet. They are not elephants or giraffes. They are tiny creatures making the above ground life possible. And at Better Soil, you mentioned also the connection of collaboration, networking as a key. We work with companies and farmers in their supply chain. So it's a kind of insetting when you want to call it. So we work with companies in Germany, in Europe, who want to improve their supply chain and make it more resilient. We spot their farmers in their supply chain, work with their farmers to increase soil health, to increase more resiliency in their supply chain. And the most important thing, bringing science into practice. We want to do it better because there are many evidence papers in scientific world showing how we can increase soil health for climate protection, for human health, for improvement of farmers' income, but there are not many finding his ways in the practice. So we combine scientific knowledge and indigenous knowledge, the farmers' knowledge on the ground, and then make a kind of soil recipe out of it. Better soil recipe it's like when you want to bake a cake, you need to have ingredients, but you have to know how to put everything in the bowl or in the pot so that you have at the end a good cake. So yes, these are the steps that we have been doing and over the last 3 years at Better Soil, and we started registering 4 companies in 4 countries because we wanted to seriously go for practice. So we started our Better Soil company in Germany. We registered it in Ulm, and then we started registration of a company in Iran, in Malawi, and in Kenya as well, Nairobi and Tiolo. And the second most important thing is what we do at Better Soil is that we turn trash into treasure. We collect waste from cities, the most important pollutions element in many countries, environmental pollution, groundwater pollution, and climate pollution. So we collect waste, kitchen waste, trash, whatever comes from the cities, and we process it in a way so at the end we have a kind of natural soil fertilizer. We cannot go with chemical fertilizer because our soils are polluted and over-fertilized. And the good point with natural soil fertilizer is that you do not overuse or over-pollute the soil because they are naturally there. You only bring it to the soil to bring back nutrients to our soil. So this is how we feed our soils in form of bringing these nutrients back to the soil. And this is the whole picture of Better Soil.
It's super interesting.
And that's why we call it For a Better World.
Yeah, because it's that integral to the whole system. Does anyone in the audience have a question for Azada? Yes, this gentleman here.
There are not many people who are asking questions, so I thought I'd give one.
Thanks.
I thought that your presentation is very, very interesting. My name is Peter Bruck. I'm the chairperson of the World Summit Awards, and we are dealing with very much digital innovation, social ventures, social impact. And I invite you also to look at WSA minus global, because there's a number of digital projects where soil plays an important role. And I wanted to have your comment on how you view digital as an enabler for what you do. Before I let you answer this, however, there's a key issue regarding soil. In 1979, the Canadian Institute for Research and Development, IDRC, started a clock in Ottawa outside the building. And it showed how many acres per second of soil which can be used for agriculture is disappearing. So in your presentation, this notion of that a lot of soil is disappearing is not at least addressed. And I say this very much because you're sitting here not in Germany but in Austria, and Austria is a European leader of using concrete to cover up soil and to diminish actually its own agricultural base. So I think this is a real key issue in terms of climate mitigation, to stop that and to move to a reduced and even to, let's say, a reverse of the concretization of the surface of the earth. So my two questions are digital and also the disappearance of agricultural land.
It's interesting. I never heard about that counter before. So yeah, Azar, you want to take those two questions?
Well, digitalization and AI can help in many ways, and we at Better Soil at the moment are collecting data to make a kind of application app that you can install on your phone, and with it you can give some information about your soil, the color of your soil, the farming system of you, and some other three simple questions, so that with this app we can propose or suggest way of how you can improve the health of your soil when you do not access us, because we cannot be everywhere on the planet as Better Soil team. And but the basic is that when you have data, you can use digitalization and AI. But when the soil is dead and there's nothing growing on it, what do you want to measure? Nothing. There is no carbon in it, no nitrogen, very low content, and digitalization does not help you in this concept. First, you need to increase the health of your soil by increasing carbon content, nitrogen content, and to boost the health of your soil so that at the end you can measure the kilogram of wheat or maize which is growing on it per hectare, or carbon content which has been bound in the soil, or nitrogen, or whatever parameters you have. So yes, when the soil is healthy, we can collect many data from it and use it for further development. For instance, the climate is changing. Hey, farmer, the climate is changing. Based on that, we are going to have more rain over the next seasons. You have to be careful of flooding. Or, hey, there's going to be a long drought on it. On your field, you need to be careful on it. And this kind of awareness, raising awareness, you can do via digitalization, data, and what Matthias today said with satellites. The second question is, what was it again? Disappearance. Yes. You know, there is a sad part of the story, but when you want to start to motivate people, you mostly talk about the positive ones without neglecting the negative one. I always said in my presentations, talks, and so on, we are losing soils on a very fast speed. 10 million hectares of good soil every year. But there is a report from UN and UNCCD coming out on 25 of October, some days ago, showing we are losing soil 100 million hectares per year, not 10 anymore. And this is the soil we are losing to desertification. This is the potential climate friend that we can have to bind carbon dioxide, to remove it from the atmosphere and put it back where it belongs. We are losing it, and with putting concrete on it, we are not losing our climate environmental friend. With putting concrete on it, we are increasing flooding, because water, the huge amount of water rain which fall down to the earth cannot penetrate in the soil because there is no soil for embracing the water. There is no soil that the rainwater penetrates through. So the water stays above, and then later, the more rain it comes, the more floodings you get. That's very simple. And, but when we want to increase and to promote and to boost this climate friend, the soil that we have to take care of it. And we have, like our kid, we have a child, we raise him or her, we feed him, so that at the end we have a proper human. Soil is not different. If you want to have a good friend, you need to take care of your friendship and feed it and take care of it and pay attention to it, and that's it. And don't forget the soil, guys. The soil needs you, your voice. Talk about it as much as you can, so that we can increase the voice of soil. Maybe soil needs a kind of lower at the end to be on the global justice and to have like a river in New Zealand has a river in court. Maybe soil needed as well.
Yeah, it's frightening, that latest statistic, that so much soil is being lost. I have another question for you, Azada. You mentioned that you're now active in 4 quite geographically diverse countries, culturally diverse as well. But what they have in common, of course, is in that all 4 of those countries, soil health and sustainable agriculture are essential to climate, but they're also areas where women play a vital role. How have you found the differences between those 4 countries in terms of culture, in terms of other factors, in dealing with that issue of soil being so connected to women, women's roles, and how women are connected to that?
You know, agriculture is a sector with the highest, or one of the highest, women working as labor force so a high fraction of women work in agriculture, and they work with soil. They are on the front line of climate change, working with soil, seeing the negative impacts of it. Working in different countries, I mean, it's very different how we talk about gender and gender equality in Germany, in Iran, in Kenya, and in Malawi. In some countries, when you talk about gender equality, it's part of culture, so that women and men work together on the field in agriculture. There is no such, I am a woman, I need to be there, and this is you, you need to be there. Maybe it's the case in other sectors, but in agriculture, my grandmother worked exactly the same hours as my grandfather on the field. They were both farmers. In Germany, it's a little bit different because you have modern agriculture and so on, but agriculture and soil is not a place where you differentiate the genders, and you shouldn't do it. We are in the 21st of century, how do you call it,
22nd now, I guess,
century. Yeah. People are flying to the moon, and Matthias showed us today about satellites collecting data. Oh, come on, and we are talking about women and men having equal rights. We are a civilized society, supposed to be.
Let me close off with a last quick question to each of you, which is what advice you would give to women entering the energy sector. Camille, we talked a little bit about this before in terms of overcoming the intimidation factor, but what would be, based on your experience, what would be your #1 piece of advice for a woman entering the energy sector?
I don't know, this is a hard question. One piece of advice to enter this industry. To be honest, I don't know. Like I said, to get together, try to be
Collaborate.
not alone. Try not to be alone. Try to get closer to people that have great idea. First, in any sector, in any entrepreneurial journey, you have to have a good idea and try to be working on a impactful topic. Try to bring something. I mean, we have good examples here of very diversified activities, and we're all trying to solve issues that are connected to the same very goal. And I think that even though we're not having the same job, we're not doing exactly the same thing, but just talking to each other, we're already helping each other. So again, I would really emphasize the communication that can go through finding a mentor. Sandiswa and I, we mentioned mentorship and training program. That can be something. Networks as well, we're all connected through social media. We have internet access to information, and that can be super helpful to get aware of events, platform, course, training session, mentorship or leadership sessions, and so on. So communication, sharing information, and obviously being kind to another. And this is also our job, maybe because we are there and we're not new in this industry, but it's our duty to share. So I would also encourage the other way around, people to share more about their experience, their journey, what they've learned, and try to make it more public so that people are aware.
Yeah, sure. Collaboration is really key. Nora, what about you based on your experiences?
So we all want to emulate another woman in the space. There are not enough of us, but there's a start. Well, case example of these women. So I tell women to be the one to create that pool of women to be emulated so that we get to have more women within the clean tech space, starting organizations, creating solutions that just create lasting impact. But then also, right now there is a lot of, not enough, but there is a lot of funds floating around, specifically targeted for women-based organizations. We must capitalize and take advantage of that to start companies that will mentor more younger and even older women to also start their own company. And that's how we create the network. So we just have to take advantage of that. Clearly, with all this conversation that we've been having for years of gender equality, there's kind of no one coming to save us. We have to save ourselves through this. We have to push for that equality. Obviously, collaboratively, not just as women, but everybody else, including the men. But then we really have to hold that network strong. And we just have to push till we get to the point where maybe there's a bit of parity, I don't know, or there's a balance. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good point. So often people just don't know about those types of funds that can be available for helping entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Sandiswa, what about you? What would be your advice?
My advice would be that be willing to learn, never stop learning, because the more information you gather, the more confident you become and the more focused you get. And that also builds your resilience in terms of staying the course even when it's difficult, because now through your knowledge and that resilience, you can build more networks and be able and be authentic. Go out there and ask for information, ask for help, because if you don't ask for help, no one will come and offer help because you don't know that you are struggling. So that will be my biggest advice, because yes, the journey is not easy. So one needs to have all the resilience and have the vision and constantly asking yourself, what is your why? Why are you doing this? Because when the going gets tough, whenever you reach within yourself and remind yourself why you're doing it, it gets better. You wake up every day and try again, even if you fail.
And finally, Azada, what would be your key advice?
Well, my advice would be don't forget the soil beneath your feet. There is a world you do not know, and if you do not want to make a world a better place for everyone, do not come to this sector. If you do not want to get out of your comfort zone and do not look for adventure, soil is nothing for you.
So 4 pieces of advice there are: collaborate and share, find available funds that are targeted toward female entrepreneurs, ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And also, if you're bold, courageous, enter the soil sector, and it will be very rewarding. I want to thank all of the panelists for some really interesting stories about innovation. I am very impressed by everything that all four of you have done. So how about a round of applause for our entrepreneurs?